Hey, my name is Dominic Fields. I'm doing my presentation on the 2000s. It was my first choice, so I'm really excited to get to talk about it for a little bit. I'm a 90s baby, so like growing up in the 2000s, I hit six because I was born in 94. So when the 2000s hit, I was 6 years old. So in that decade, I was a kid, became a teenager. So it's kind of like really close to me in the sense of like what happened. So yeah, you are now plugged into the Matrix. I named it this because in a sense, in 1999, The Matrix premiered, and The Matrix really showed what people thought the new millennium would look like for everybody. Futuristic, almost dystopia, very like fast paced, and it was really cool. So yes, I have some of the more prevalent images of the 2000s. You have Beyonce before going solo and Crazy in Love, uh, Britney Spears and I'm Slaver for You, Kanye West, Daft Punk, Outkast winning Album of the Year, and collecting like six trophies that night. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, the new millennium, one of the biggest peaks for music industry in terms of revenue. This decade recorded some of the biggest record sales for a week of releases in history. If you think about when Britney came out with "Baby One More Time," a debut had never hit levels like that before, and then she followed it up with like "Oops, I Did It Again." Same could be said for like NSYNC when Beyonce debuted. Most of Kanye West's releases, like people were selling millions of records consistently, like over a base of like weeks. Like it was like people aren't selling records the way they were in the 2000s. This is the last years of life before the internet. So yeah, me being a 90s kid, I grew up without the internet. It was prevalent maybe a few years when it started, but not everybody could get it. And this is like the last decade of no internet and like internet not being available to everyone. So now it's like everywhere. Everyone can get on online. Futuristic aesthetics were a big vocal point. So everything was made to look like it was 10 years in the future from the 2000s. So it was like, how far into the future can we look? Celebrities have become the vocal point of Western society. So everyone pretty much wanted to know what celebrities were doing over here in like United States and across the world, but like mostly like U.S. culture was the news cycle. So yeah, some of the hit makers I wrote like Kanye West, Britney, Eminem, NSYNC, Beyonce, Lil Wayne, Green Day, Usher, like hit makers. Because in a sense, getting to number one was a lot easier in the 2000s because there was so much like firecracker, like hit, 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 hit. Because like the longest number one before Old Town Road was One Sweet Day in the 90s. So the most of the 2000s was just popcorn hits, like just this was a hit for a few weeks. This was a hit for a next, and like it was just like in and out, in and out. I wanted to mention some of the producers because these producers, I think, have definitely influenced the sound we hear now. So you have like Dr. Dre and his work with Eminem and Snoop Dogg. Some of the hits being like Slim Shady by Eminem and Nothing But a G Thing by Snoop Dogg. Then Timbaland in the Middle is one of my personal favorites. He's worked with Missy Elliott, Aaliyah, Justin Timberlake once he left NSYNC, Destiny's Child. Some of those notable hits are Get Your Freak On, Sexy Back, and Rock That Body by Justin Timberlake. Then on the end, I have Max Martin, which I think is one of the best pop producers we've had, especially in my lifetime. He's worked with Britney Spears, NSYNC, Christina Aguilera, Kelly Clarkson. Present day, he's worked with like Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande. Like if you need a power hit or a pop hit, you call Max Martin. And so I definitely had to mention that. Some of the big hits being Baby One More Time, Oops, I Did It Again. He did Bye Bye Bye, Tearing Your Heart Right Back, I Want It That Way, Backstreet's Back. Like, it's just hit makers, man. Yeah, for me, this is the decade of making the video. Music videos were prevalent in the decades before, but in the 2000s, like, music videos had hit a new level. Um, Budgets were even higher than they had become in the 90s for like hip hop videos, but pop videos for certain, it was untouchable in a sense of like aesthetics and just what they were doing. So like Missy Elliott's work that, Gaga and Poker Face, Britney and Oops I Did It Again, NSYNC and Ba Ba Ba, Kanye West and Stronger, and you got Beyonce breaking records with Single Ladies. Like music videos were honestly like the movies of like music. Like they were, if you didn't make a good video, you didn't make a good song. I guess you could say like these were everywhere. Yeah, you can't really talk about the 2000s without talking about 9/11. Um, Without a doubt, one of the most talked about moments in the 2000s or in American history as a whole. I was had just turned 7, so this didn't affect me a lot. People who were a little bit older than us were. I do remember being like sitting in a classroom and like just being told that we just need to chill. All the teachers left and went into the hallway to talk amongst themselves. We're watching on the news in like the teachers' lounge, and we're all just not knowing that what was happening outside our classroom was like bigger than any of us when we were kids. It's one of those moments that they always ask you where you were, and you never know. You didn't know like the world would change. Like it's insane. Yes, celebrity culture spikes during this time. Tabloid culture was selling. As in a word, it was like clickbait. Like our present day clickbait were tabloids. Like what can you get someone to grab off the shelf while they're grocery shopping? Like what can you put front page to be like, get this while you're reading, like get this while you're checking out, and take it home with you and tell all your friends that they need to buy it the next day. So you have like pictures of Britney shaving her head in '06, Bimbo Summit in '07. Then you've Brad and Angelina drama, Kanye taking the mic from Taylor. Like celebrities were almost bigger than politicians at this point. Like it was everything engulfed in them was our world. I think that was a big part of social media having its start in the mid 2000s. So we had MySpace started in August of 2003, Facebook February of the following year, and then 2 years later, Twitter. And like two of these are still the biggest social media platforms like around. Like I feel like people ask if you have a Facebook or a Twitter before they ask you what your phone number is or your contact information. Like the fact that they started so quickly back then, but now are the most sought after things. Like a lot of phones in other countries come preloaded with Facebook, like just to show how in depth like what the 2000s had like led to. Another like moment you can't really unavoid is the blackout of '08. The stock market crashes on September 15th, 2008. It was the biggest economic crash since 1929's like crash, which started the Great Depression. And once again, like I wasn't old enough to comprehend like the magnitude of this, but looking back on it, having like your financial system that your country is like based on to crash for a little while, or like I think it crashed for like a week and a half, and like never regrouped. Like we're still backtracking from this crash, so it's just crazy to see how many events or just how heavy everything was in the 2000s. Like it was all so fast paced, but also like lasting effects for sure. YouTube kills MTV. So when MTV premiered, they led with a song that said, "Radio killed no, video killed the radio star," and I think that was kind of funny and ironic now that the internet has killed the video star. So like once videos could hit YouTube and started to premiere on YouTube, it was kind of over for MTV. Not that it already wasn't, but the last little wave that MTV had, it was completely gone. Like YouTube launched in 2005 and has since become the biggest content platform ever. Like people don't need video premieres. Like people used to sit and wait for a music video premiere like on a one day, and if you missed it, you didn't see it for like another week. Then we went through an era where every day before I went to school, I could watch 20 videos while I was getting ready, and then go to school for the day. And it's just crazy that that's over. Like now, I can watch any video ever made like right now. So YouTube really changed everything. And then lastly, you had to talk about, we're talking about pop culture and talking about music history. The the start of it being 9/11, and then the end of it to me being Michael Jackson's death kind of just shows the 2000s like as a powerhouse, like in a sense of like our American culture, because you had one of the biggest icons across honestly the universe, but mostly definitely the world. Like Michael Jackson was the staple. He died in June 25th, 2009, at the age of 50, and seeing an icon like that finally like pass in my lifetime was kind of like crazy. It was like everyone. It's one of those like where you when you find out, and the funeral was broadcasted everywhere. So I think looking back on it, especially doing some of my research for this, is like I have a bias toward the 2000s, but I think the 2000s is definitely probably one of the most important decades in like my history, but definitely like modern culture history. So